First of all, I do apologize if you hear any kind of vibration noises. That's my phone giving me notification, so I do apologize for that. But I wanted to come on here because I wanted to talk about something that I talked about in my previous audio video I just uploaded today, where I kind of touched upon this, but also mentioned I was going to do a full audio video, on-screen video about it. And what I want to talk about is, of course, the one thing I'm sure a lot of us have noticed since almost the beginning of the year. You see, a lot of us may have noticed, if not taken notice, of a lot of sites that we utilize to make a full-time, if not partial, financial living. We've noticed that a lot of them have changed their policies, the guidelines, if you will. And even though some of us may not agree with these changes, we do understand why they're happening. I mean, we all understand that we're in a day and age now to where you have all kinds of groups that are very influential in what can be seen, what can be discussed, what could be, viewed, well, seen and viewed the same, what could be read, and so on. And we're talking things like woke groups of every nature, council culture groups of every nature, SJW groups of every nature, left-wingers, in-betweeners, you name it. We are seeing a huge influential influx of these groups making an impact, big and small, on a lot of the, I guess you could say, creative sites that we utilize, like I said, to make a full-time, if not partial, financial living. And when it comes to these sites, like let's say the YT, which is short for YouTube, we've noticed, or at least I've noticed, less and less of uploads when it comes to, let's say, games like Call of Duty or games like Mortal Kombat. Now, you might say, well, that's not entirely true, but it is. It really is. Because you don't see that much advertisement for Mortal Kombat anymore. Mostly the new Mortal Kombat and such. You don't see that much advertisement for Call of Duty, even the new ones. I mean, you do see them, but they're very, very sparse. Like, the only seen as advertisements, let's say, through, the highest paid content partners and creators and stuff. So you might still see them, but not as much anymore. And I think that's because of the change in policies and guidelines that YouTube has been implementing. And again, it's very understandable. I mean, like I said, we're in a day and age where a lot of woke groups that have parents, mothers, if you will, do not want their kids tuning into YouTube, and seeing this kind of stuff, even if they have it, set on YouTube for kids or whatever. They don't want them seeing this kind of stuff. They don't want them to be heavily influenced. And with a lot of reports of what's happened tragically, throughout the year, video games are always at the forefront, mostly very violent video games. So it's not hard to believe or take in that a place like YouTube would say, yeah, as far as the Mortal Kombat gameplay goes, as far as the Call of Duty gameplay goes and all that, you're pretty much not going to have that anymore. Now, the only way you will have it is for, let's say, discussion periods. Like, let's say, discussions, panels, essays, research and all that. That's the only way you could have it. But even then, you got to be careful because when you show the footage, you got to show the footage that's not so violent or gruesome or whatever, And even if you do, you got to explain that you're showing it for research purposes or educational purposes or whatever. But be that as it may, you've been noticing a lot less of that, over time, which is why you're seeing some people going over to places like Patreon and, other outlets to make, a financial living, to kind of make up for what they're losing. I mean, one person I follow here on YouTube is Chris Bors, the irate gamer. Excuse me. And the irate gamer, Chris Bors, if you will, he's had to switch over to Patreon due to the fact that even though he tried monetization here on YouTube, because of the policy and guideline changes, he can't really monetize like he would love to because of some of the games, that he reviews, along with the little storylines he implements into them, may not be suitable for YouTube. So his his recourse, I should say, is to go over to Patreon and make up for what he doesn't make, on YouTube over there. But even Patreon itself is changing as well. Like I said in my previous video, one person called Nextstat, known for their Nexy comics, had to create their own website due to the fact that YouTube has changed, not YouTube, but Patreon, I should say, has changed in its guideline policies. Now, people like Trouble TRO and Joven16 and a few others are very fortunate to still, be on Patreon, because of the fact that they find a way to, I guess you could say, slide under the guidelines as best they can with what they represent or what they present, period. Like I mentioned before, when it comes to Trouble TRO, he has his Pink Benefits series, which is pretty much an NFSW series, but it also relies more on certain plots to move the story. And when he does want to do some interaction between characters, he does it in a way to where, you might see some NFSW stuff, but not as prolific, if you will, as you normally would. And if he wants to do something between the two main ladies, which he's done before, you're going to get some of those moments of the NFSW kind, but like I said, not as prolific. As a matter of fact, when he did his spin-off series called Agent Pink, and he did a sequel which involved Mr. Internet Man's character Demonica, the way it ended is both the Demonica character as her Monica alter ego and Trouble TRO's Betty character from Pink Benefits, and then, later on joined by the Emily character from Pink Benefits. Basically, they got it on in a very shape-shifty way, which ended up with them turning into slime girls and melting and pretty much merging, fusing into each other. So that was one way they were able to scoot under the guidelines with Patreon and not get into trouble, and that's what you kind of see now. I mean, the most recent chapter of Pink Benefits has the Emily character pretty much as a faceless drone, having fun with the powers that she is, pretty much, growing into having more so than ever. Pretty much, she's having fun discovering what she can and cannot do. Or what she can do, the only limitation is her imagination. But when it comes to Nextstat or Nextstar and the Nexy comics, even though some of the comics now are not so, I guess you could say, risque NFSW, they don't want to take a chance with Patreon's, changing policies and guidelines. So what do? They decide to go create their own website, which they still are pretty much developing as we speak. I mean, it's full on and up and going, and you can check out the comics as much as you want, depending on the Patreon tier you're supporting Nextstat add-on. But even so, it's still a website that still has some issues that have to be addressed, and they are addressing it as best they can. But they made that due to the fact that they don't want to have to deal with any issues, when it comes to Patreon. Because Patreon, again, like YouTube, is changing. Its guidelines are changing. Its policies are changing. And I guarantee you, people like Trouble TRO and Joven16, and others that are in the NFSW, I guess you could say genre, and everything, and have certain fetishes and tropes that they utilize, I'm sure they're very much aware that sooner or later, they're going to have to jump ship or follow in the direction of Nextstat and create a website of their own so they don't have to deal with any trouble, that comes their way from Patreon as it continuously, evolves and changes its guidelines and policies. Now, one credit people have given it, from what I understand, is it has backtracked a bit because it is getting a bit of backlash but it's still moving on with its guidelines and policies evolving over time. So those people that I follow on there, like I said, are aware, I'm sure they are, that eventually they're going to have to find another means to share the material, but still make money off it. And then you got Gumroad. Gumroad was kind of like a Patreon, but not really, but more of a marketplace site where people could sell their creations in comic form or artistic form or whatever, video form or whatever, for people to purchase and enjoy. But now even Gumroad has changed its policies to the point that if you have an account on there and it has somewhat of a NFSW vibe to it, you should consider yourself lucky for the time being, because over time you might have to switch over to something else. And how do I know this? Because one of the people I support, Lady Jasami, is known for her certain tropes, if you will. Her certain, I guess you could say, melty, boorish kind of tropes, if you will. And these are the kind of tropes that are the very extreme, if not so extreme, NFSW kind. And she was always uploading, along with other people she would work with, like Groblick and a few others. She would upload a lot of her stuff onto Gumroad because a lot of people would just want to, buy it and move on and just move on from there. But unfortunately, in the past couple of months, that all changed. As I've talked about before, Gumroad decided to essentially say, at this time in March, I think it was back in March, things are going to change. Things are going to change, and if you have any accounts that have explicit material, those accounts are going to have to be deleted, and you're going to have to remove your material, or we'll remove it for you. Now, of course, they ended up getting backlash for it, to the point that they had to retract what they said, but still stick by what they were going to do. They said basically they were going to delete accounts or remove material. However, to save face, they said, whatever people purchased, off of your sites, off your pages, they would still be able to keep in the libraries. So if you purchased anything from, let's say, Groblick or Lady Drasami or whoever, and it's of explicit NFSW material, comics or artwork or videos, you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about losing that because that's still going to be around. It's just the people you purchased it from, their pages are not. Their pages are not. And Gumroad even came out and tried to apologize for it and say, look, we tried to get an extension on, how long we could, keep your stuff up so you guys would have enough time to find other places to, share and, make money off your material. But they weren't given enough time because the people behind it, and I do apologize for the notification there if you heard it, the people behind it said, no go. You're not going to get any extension. You're not going to get any opportunity to retain any extra time to allow the content creators to do what they got to do. So what do? They apologize for it. And I guess in the process, kind of to try to save face, say, hey, look, you can have your material kept on here through the people's libraries that purchase it from you. It's just, unfortunately, you're going to have to, remove your material and take it elsewhere, or we're going to have to do it for you. So yeah, even Gumroad, which was looked at as a, very popular marketplace for people like Drasami, Groblick, and others, even they had to, succumb to the changes going on in this world due to these other, groups, these very influential groups. And, it's just going to keep happening over time, guys. You think one side's safe for you to utilize, but over time, you don't know. You don't know if that site's going to get hit. You don't know if that site's going to suddenly tell you, yeah, we're being bombarded by such and such and their groups and blah, 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 blah. You don't know if they're eventually going to tell you the same thing that Gumroad told, its users, its sellers and all that. Because eventually it's going to happen. It's going to happen whether we like it or we don't. So, yeah, unfortunately, a lot of guidelines and policies at all our favorite outlets to make, full-time financial, if not partial, living financially, a lot of them are changing. But here's the thing, it's not totally their fault. It's the fault, if you will, of a lot of these influential groups that are either woke, cancel culture, or SJW. That's who's truly at fault here, because they have a lot of influential say on what happens. Either we like it or we don't. I mean, this is why when you look at places like BitChute, you look at places like Rumble, and all that, these alternative uploading video sites that are similar to YouTube, this is why you see a lot of people slowly but surely, creating and moving some of the content over to those areas because they're less restrictive on their policies and guidelines. This is why you see people going to other outlets, if you will, that are similar to Gumroad and Patreon. This is why you see them going to those places, because they're less restrictive, on the policies and guidelines. And they're not so well known. They're not so well, I guess you could say, seen, by others out there, in public. But at the end of the day, it's just something we got to deal with. It's just something we got to deal with, which is why a lot of people constantly go out and say that this year's election, presidentially, Senate, and all that is very important. Because if we don't vote for the right people in there that support our ideals and our freedom of speech and creation, then this is just going to keep happening year after year after year. So, so basically when it comes to this election, it is one we have to pay attention to. Because if we want our freedom of creation, our freedom of speech, people to say, hey, these people have the right to, say what they want to say or show what they want to show and all that, no matter where they do it at. If we want those kind of people in office, then we have to pay attention to what they're for and, what they believe in along with us. Because you can't tell me some of these people that are running for office, no matter what party they're involved in, you can't tell me they're not hearing about these kind of things happening and being like, either A, they're in support of it, or B, they're not, and they're like, yeah, when I get in office, I'm going to make sure this changes for the betterment of the people. You don't know. You don't know. What they're gonna, how they're gonna feel about that. But it's guaranteed they're paying attention to it. There's no doubt. But again, it's just something right now. Excuse me. It's just something right now we got to deal with, and we just got to tolerate. And again, that's why you have these. Excuse me. You have these alternatives out there. Like BitChute, like Rumble, and other places, that allow us, with less restrictions and everything, to, share our material, share our creations, and not get in trouble for it or anything. But honestly, again, it's just something right now we have to deal with when it comes to the more notable, major social media content creating platforms that are out there. Just got to deal with it and hope for the best after, the 2024 election. But let me know what your thoughts are. How do you feel about some of these policy changes at places like the YT, YouTube, at places like, Patreon and Gumroad and others? What are your thoughts on them? And do you think maybe after this 2024 election, the people that might get voted in, the right people, might change it for the betterment for a lot of us in the future, and some of those sites that are putting these policy and guidelines on there might have a change of heart and say, hey, these new people, they want us to give more freedom to you guys. Give more freedom back to you guys. Okay, fine. Here you go. What are your thoughts? Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Also, guys, as it's described in the description, super chats are open. Sorry about that, but like I said, just let me know in the description and everything. Oh, not description, in the comment section, but in the live chat. Like I was saying before the phone interrupted me there, super chats are open and super thanks are open once again. So you guys want to help support me there. Super chats are open in the live chat during the premiere, and super thanks during the premiere and afterwards as well. It'd be greatly appreciated. But guys, give me your thoughts. What do you think about these changes overall? And do you think, again, like I said, with the 2024 election coming, do you think the people that get voted in, maybe the right people we need that get voted in, might, decide to change these things back to where we have a little bit more freedom in what we can upload and share in these various outlets? Let me know down below in the comments as well in the live chat during the premiere. And until then, guys, I am out.